Hey guys, how you doing? John Moran here. In today's video, I'm going to be making one of my little glass hearts. These are called Halfway. This is the second edition of this series, and there's something that's really meaningful for me. So I really hope you enjoy, and if you're interested, these are available on my website. I was working solo on these hearts, so I didn't get a chance to film the entire process, mainly from the very beginning. I picked up a chunk of bar color onto a punty rod and then rolled that in some powder. So I didn't start with a gather, I started with a piece of pure color. But here you can see I start to shape the heart. At this point it's really about putting in the kind of four ventricles that I'm gonna use later on. That will end up being the basic form for the heart. Obviously there's a lot of details that go into this, but this is really the base. It's kind of the layout, the foundation for the whole form. So once I have that laid out, I'm going to start torching and kind of focusing my heat into some of the areas so I can stretch those little weird cuts to look a little bit more like the heart. A lot of times, depending on what I really want to have as the final goal, I'll actually use the torch heat to do a lot of the moving rather than torching and then going for a flash like you would do on kind of the larger pieces. I did edit out all the flashes on this because it seemed like a little bit extra to have to watch me walk back and forth to the glory hole and wait for an empty bench to show up. So here I'm going to start on the detail. As you can see, I sometimes throw my tools on the ground by accident when I'm working, so I had to grab this little knife, which is one I made especially for little moves like this. Yeah, once I have the basic layout, I'm going to start going back in, again using the torch heat, just the main heat from the torch, to kind of push things around. Once I have the things where I want them, I will use the torch again for detail, but right now I'm just trying to build up the heat so that glass is really mushy, and I do force it a little bit, and I do make a mark that kind of pushes it the way that I want. So I am controlling the glass. It's not just using the heat, it is also using some of the force from the tool. You can see the glass moving around a little bit here, but I am working fairly cold to make sure that I maintain that shape and I'm not getting too much around. From the glory hole heat, I do come back and make a couple extra tweaks, so I did take a little bit of a longer heat there to make sure I'm getting this in the shape I want. And then once I have those parts laid out, I'm going to go back in here and pull out two of the little valves on the top of the heart. I don't put a ton of detail in yet because I know I'm going back in to work on this. So I'm just making the kind of basic shape here, so you have these two little valves popping off the top. And then later, when I'm building into the form, I'll make sure that those look hollow and look like they're tubes rather than just nipples sticking off of there. So yeah, after this heat, I'm going to go in, and this is where I will start adding a little bit of the detail and giving some kind of texture and life to that heart. It should look pretty meaty. So I'm going to build up quite a bit of heat here and then go back in and use this little knife tool I have to just put some of these little details in. I do have to work pretty fast here because the heat doesn't last super long. So it's about first getting that heat in there so it stays, and then going in with this tool and making as many marks as I can to make it look like a wrinkly old polyp muscle. I think that's the best way to describe what I'm trying to do here. So at this point it's kind of a wash and repeat deal. You'll see I'll just continue to go back in and work over sections with the knife till I get texture all over that heart. It doesn't take terribly long, but it does take a little while. And in between these sections I'm going for flashes, but I'm basically just trying to get as much texture over the whole heart as possible. I think that's what really brings these things to life. If I have these areas that are not covered in this texture, then it feels like it's kind of naked or something. Here I'm going to set up and add some of the little veins. The veins don't necessarily look perfectly realistic, but they bring a lot of extra color and texture to the heart. I think that's what really kind of brings it to life and makes it feel realistic or anatomically correct. Important for me that these hearts kind of become as realistic and lifelike as possible, because there's something I've never, like, I started making in a pretty strange way. It was the kind of thing I didn't used to make a lot, which is work that was quite personal. But I made these pieces really specifically about my father's heart attack. He passed away when he was 38 years old, and it made me kind of realize how fragile life is, and how little things in our body are so important. And that's why making these pieces is so kind of special, but also like cathartic for me. Even though they're kind of detailed, there's lots of detail that goes into them. There's lots of little movements in a lot of ways. There's something I really enjoy doing, and they're a little bit mindless in a way. I have to focus, but I can kind of lose my thoughts and just think about the things while I'm doing this. And I think that's what makes it so nice to make, and so meaningful for me. So you may notice I didn't really put a jackline in this piece. I do that intentionally so I can actually build the heart the way that I want to. Once I have the whole thing done, I'm going to go back in and torch around the pipe, and I'll kind of pull and cut the heart there so that it actually looks pretty organic on the bottom rather than it being broken off at a pointy jackline. I decided to finish these pieces by putting them on a kind of a clear stand so they would stand on their own and not just sit funny laying down. So basically here I cut it off of the pipe. I'm going to grab a little gather and drop it onto this preheated kiln shelf and then stick the heart in that. Once it's cool enough, I'll put it in the annealing oven, but I do not have that on video. But yeah, you can imagine how that goes. And then the pieces cool for about 8 hours, and then they're out the next day. So Kaiser's joined me here after the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that. You can check them out on my website. If you did enjoy the video and you want to see more, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Please share this with your friends or check me out on Instagram. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.